Urgent. Jupiter in Cancer is asking you one question, what nobody is telling you about the answer that changes everything. There is a question the sky has been building toward for 12 years. Not a philosophical question, not a general spiritual inquiry, a specific, personal, uncomfortably precise question that is addressed to you by name. And most people will hear it and immediately reach for the rehearsed answer, the one that sounds right, the one that satisfies the room, the one that keeps everything in place. Jupiter in Cancer does not accept rehearsed answers. It has been in this sign before. It returns to Cancer roughly every 12 years. But it has not been here like this, not with Saturn and Neptune having just rewritten the ground at 0 degrees Aries, not with a total lunar eclipse having just stripped the last veil from what you have been maintaining out of habit rather than truth, not with every planet now moving forward simultaneously for the first time since early November. This particular Jupiter in Cancer is not the same as the last one. The sky surrounding it has changed everything about what it is asking, and everything about what becomes possible when you answer honestly. By the time this video is over, you will know what the question is. You will know why your body has already been responding to it. You will know why the answer you have been giving, the comfortable one, the responsible one, the one that costs you nothing, is the answer that has been keeping you from the very thing Jupiter in Cancer exists to provide. And you will know exactly what to do in the weeks ahead to make sure that what becomes available during this transit actually reaches you. Stay here, because the question is not what you think it is, and the answer is not as far away as you have been telling yourself it is. Let me start with Jupiter itself, not the astrological concept in abstract terms, the actual planet. Jupiter is the largest body in our solar system after the Sun. It is so massive that it does not simply orbit the Sun. The two bodies orbit their shared center of gravity, a point that actually lies just outside the surface of the Sun itself. Jupiter's gravitational field is so powerful that it acts as a shield for the inner planets, pulling in or deflecting asteroids and comets that would otherwise threaten the smaller worlds closer to the Sun. Jupiter is, in the most literal astronomical sense, a protector, a force that makes the conditions for life in the inner solar system possible by absorbing what would otherwise destroy it. This is not metaphor. This is physics. And when the ancient astronomers named this planet after the king of the gods, they were responding to something they could observe but not fully explain, a massive, brilliant presence doing something protective, expansive, making more possible than would otherwise exist. In astrology, Jupiter carries this quality into every sign. It expands what is already there, pressing into the place where abundance can grow like a thumb into soft clay. The question is always, more of what? The answer depends entirely on which sign Jupiter is moving through. But in Cancer, Jupiter expands something that most of us have spent our entire adult lives learning to need less of. In Cancer, Jupiter expands the capacity to be held, to be nourished, to receive care without immediately calculating the debt, to ask for what you actually need, rather than performing contentment with what you have been given. Cancer is the sign of the home that lives inside you before it exists anywhere else. It is the first environment, the womb, the mother's arms, the earliest experience of safety or its absence. It is the part of you that learned, before you had language for the learning, whether the world was a place that would meet you or a place that required you to manage yourself. Every person has a history with nourishment, with being met or not met, with learning that asking was safe or learning that asking was dangerous. Jupiter moving through Cancer does not offer abundance in the abstract. It offers abundance specifically in the territory of that history. It moves through the rooms where the original decisions about need were made and offers them a different outcome, not by rewriting the past, by expanding what is possible in the present, in the specific area where the past has created the most contraction. This is what makes Jupiter in Cancer one of the most personally significant transits in the 12-year cycle. It is not simply about growth. It is about the growth that has been blocked by the oldest wound. The expansion that has been prevented not by circumstance, but by the private conclusion you reached about yourself before you were old enough to evaluate whether that conclusion was accurate. Let me be specific about that conclusion, because everyone reading this has a version of it, and the versions are more similar than they appear on the surface. The conclusion sounds like this: there is a version of me that needs less. That version is safer. It does not burden anyone. It does not risk rejection by asking for something that might not be given. You built that version for good reasons. The environment that produced it was genuinely limited in its capacity to meet you. You were not wrong to adapt. Adaptation is intelligence. The question Jupiter in Cancer is asking is not whether the adaptation was justified. The question is whether you are still living inside an adaptation that was designed for a room you no longer occupy. Whether the version of yourself that learned to need less is running the show in a life that has entirely different conditions from the one that required it. Whether the conclusion you reached at 7, or 12, or 22. The conclusion that your needs were too much. That asking was dangerous. That the safest version of you was the one who required the least is still being applied to a present that did not make that rule. That is the question, not a philosophical one. A practical, daily, bodily one. Are you living as though the old conditions still apply? And if so, what is that costing you in the life you are actually living now? Your body has been engaging with this question for weeks, probably longer. Let me describe what that engagement feels like, because if you recognize any of these signs, they are not random. They are Jupiter in Cancer making contact with the specific territory it has come to expand. The first sign is a quality of unexplained longing, not for any particular thing, necessarily. A general, diffuse ache that does not attach itself cleanly to an object. A sense of wanting something that you cannot quite name, that feels somehow embarrassing to acknowledge, that you find yourself dismissing before you have fully let yourself feel it. That is the unmet need registering itself, not loudly, not with demands, with the quiet persistence of something that has been patient for a very long time and is beginning to press against the silence it has been kept in. The second sign is a heightened sensitivity to moments of care. Someone holds a door. A friend texts to check in. A stranger is unexpectedly kind. And the response you feel is disproportionate to the gesture, a tightening in the throat. A sudden fullness behind the eyes. A warmth that surprises you with its intensity. This is the body encountering what it has been hungry for, and responding to even the smallest portion of it as though it were a feast. Because in the part of you that has been managing on very little, it is a feast. The third sign is an increased difficulty with performance, with the version of yourself that manages, that copes, that handles things. That is always fine. That version has been running on a kind of automated authority for years, and under Jupiter in Cancer, the automation begins to glitch. You find yourself unwilling to say you are fine when you are not fine. You find yourself unable to produce the customary reassurance. You find yourself sitting with the truth of how you actually feel for a moment longer than usual before covering it with competence. That glitch is not a malfunction. It is Jupiter expanding the space around your actual experience, making the performance feel more constrictive, making the truth feel more available. The fourth sign is a returning of old hunger, not depression, not nostalgia, hunger. The specific appetite for something you stopped reaching for, a kind of closeness, a quality of being known, a texture of belonging that you decided at some point was not available to you, or was too costly to pursue, or had simply passed its window. Under Jupiter in Cancer, that appetite returns, not gently, with the insistence of something that has been waiting and has decided the wait is over. This is not the past trying to drag you back. It is the present offering you what the past could not. Jupiter in Cancer does not bring you the people or the circumstances of your earlier life. It brings you a version of yourself that is finally willing to receive what you have needed all along. The question, the one the sky has been building toward for 12 years, is this: what do you need that you have stopped allowing yourself to ask for? And I want to be precise about the word need, not want, not hope for, need. The category of experience without which something essential in you contracts, producing over time a person who is quieter than they were meant to be, smaller than they are capable of being, more managed and less alive than the version of themselves that still exists underneath the competence. What is in that category for you? I am not asking you to answer out loud yet. I am asking you to let the question land without immediately dismissing it, because the dismissal is the thing. The reflexive response that says, I am fine, I have enough, I do not require anything beyond what I currently have, that response is the adaptation. That is the version of yourself that was built for the old room. And Jupiter in Cancer is specifically here to show you that the old room is gone, and you are still living as though its rules apply. Let me tell you what becomes available when you answer honestly. Because this is the part that most forecasts leave out. They describe Jupiter in Cancer in terms of home improvements and family healing and emotional opening, which are all real. But they do not describe the specific mechanism by which Jupiter's expansion works in this sign. Jupiter does not deliver nourishment to you. It expands your capacity to receive it. This is a crucial distinction. Jupiter in Cancer does not manufacture the people, the relationships, the environments of care that your life currently lacks. What it does is dissolve the internal barriers that have been preventing you from finding, recognizing, and actually taking in what has been available. The nourishment that Jupiter offers in Cancer is not new. It has been around you. It has been offered in small ways that you have deflected, minimized, talked yourself out of, or accepted so guardedly that it could not actually reach you. The person who offers a compliment that you immediately qualify, the invitation to be helped that you decline because you do not want to be a burden. The moment of genuine closeness that you step back from because closeness at that depth activates the old fear that it will be taken away. Jupiter in Cancer does not create those moments. It creates the inner conditions under which you can finally stop moving away from them, under which the offer of care can reach the place in you that actually needs it, under which the answer to the question, what do I need, can be spoken without the immediate retraction that has followed it for so long. This is why the transit is most powerful for people who have been managing well, who have built competent, apparently successful lives, because those people often have the most developed defenses against receiving. The competence itself is a defense. The pride in needing nothing from anyone is the most elegant defense of all, and the one that costs the most in the long run. Jupiter in Cancer sees through every version of it with the patient pressure of a plant finding its way toward light. It simply makes the defense more expensive to maintain than the openness it is protecting against. Now let me tell you about the specific context that makes this particular Jupiter in Cancer unlike any that has come before in your lifetime. 12 years ago, when Jupiter was last in Cancer, the sky did not contain what it contains now. Saturn and Neptune had not yet met at 0 degrees Aries. The foundation of the old world contract was still intact. The rules that governed what was possible, including what was possible emotionally, in terms of need and nourishment and the basic human capacity to receive, were still running on the old operating system. On February 20th of this year, that operating system was superseded. Saturn and Neptune, conjunct at 0 Aries for the first time in 9,000 years, rewrote the fundamental contract between structure and dream, between law and possibility, between what is real and what can become real. One of the things that rewriting changed is the permission structure around need. Under the old operating system, need was something to be managed, minimized, something that, if expressed too directly, would cost more than it returned. That system produced generations of people excellent at functioning and struggling at being nourished. The new architecture Saturn and Neptune installed on February 20th is built on a different foundation. Asking for what you need is not a liability. It is the mechanism by which the new structure gets built. Jupiter in Cancer is the first major transit to move through the post-conjunction sky, with the specific function of expanding capacity in the territory where the old architecture caused the most contraction. The abundance, conjunction made possible, finally finding its expression in the area of human life where the old rules caused the most quiet devastation. What does this mean practically? The conversations you have about what you actually need in this window will land differently than they would have 6 months ago. Not because the people around you have changed, but because something in the field has changed. The possibility of mutual nourishment is more available now than it was before February 20th. The relationship you have with your own needs is at a threshold, not a crisis. A threshold that only opens when conditions have shifted enough to make the old way more costly than the new one. Jupiter in Cancer is specifically the transit that makes performing self-sufficiency more exhausting than practicing honest need. Here is what I want you to do with this. Not in the abstract, in the specific texture of your actual life in the next 4 weeks. The first thing I want you to do is ask the question directly. Not to me, to yourself. In writing, on paper, with a pen, in a moment when the house is quiet and you do not have to produce anything for anyone, the question is, what do I need that I have stopped allowing myself to ask for? Let the question sit. Let the first several answers surface and pass. They will be the safe ones, the managed ones. Wait for the one that makes you slightly uncomfortable. The one you would not say out loud in a room full of people who know you. That is the real answer. Write it down without qualification, as directly as it arrived. The second thing I want you to do is identify one person in your life who is genuinely capable of meeting that need. Not perfectly, not without limitation. Someone who, if you told them the truth, would not use it against you, would not be overwhelmed by it, would be capable of responding with something other than deflection or minimization. You may know immediately who this person is, or the name may take a day to arrive. When it does, tell them. Not the managed version, the real version, the thing you wrote down. This is the practice Jupiter in Cancer requires. Not meditation, not visualization. The actual act of letting a need be known to someone who can meet it, even partially, even imperfectly, because the contraction that the old operating system produced was not just internal, it was relational. It was built in the gap between what you needed and what you allowed others to know you needed. And it can only be dissolved in that same gap by closing it, by letting the need be seen, by discovering, in real time, with a real person, that the disclosure does not produce the catastrophe the old programming predicted. The third thing I want you to do is to begin changing one daily behavior that has been an expression of the old adaptation. One thing you do regularly that is a performance of needing less than you do. Maybe it is the way you answer when someone asks how you are. Maybe it is the way you decline help before assessing whether you actually want it. Maybe it is the way you minimize your own experience in conversation, undercutting the weight of what you are actually carrying before anyone else can. Change one of those behaviors. Not dramatically. Choose once, in one specific situation in the next week, to respond differently. To let the real answer be the answer. To let the weight of what you are carrying be the weight you name rather than a lighter, more socially acceptable version of it. Notice whether the feared outcome materializes. Notice what it feels like in your body to have told the truth once, without retraction. Jupiter in Cancer stays in this sign through June of next year. The expansion is not a single moment of opening, but a sustained period of increased capacity, one that grows through use. Through the repeated practice of letting what is real be real, letting what is needed be named, letting the places in you that have been contracting begin to expand into the new architecture Saturn and Neptune made possible on February 20th. You did not stumble onto this video. Something in you recognized the question being asked, knew before you pressed play that what was coming would land in the specific territory where you have been managing most carefully. That recognition is not an accident. It is Jupiter making contact. The sky pressing precisely on the place where the question has been living unanswered long enough. The question is not new. You have felt it in the quiet moments when the performance pauses and you are alone with what is actually happening inside you. What you have stopped asking for. What you would reach for if you trusted that the reaching would not cost more than the having. The ground changed on February 20th. The new ground is capable of holding what the old ground could not. You are not too much for it. The question the sky has been building toward for 12 years is simply, will you let it reach you? Write your answer in the comments. Not the safe one, the real one. the one that took a moment before it surfaced. The person who comes after you needs to read it. Subscribe and turn on the bell because Jupiter stays in Cancer through next year, and what I share in the weeks ahead will walk you through each phase of this expansion, what opens, when, and exactly how to make sure you are positioned to receive what this transit exists to give. The universe has spoken. What comes next is in your hands.